Welcome, Reshanna Boswell, to Women's Bodybuilding Podcast. Just an introduction for everyone who doesn't know you, which they should. You are 2 times Olympian, 1 in physique, 1 in women's bodybuilding, and you finished top 10 at the last Olympia, which is bloody incredible.
Yeah, 9th in the world, technically.
That feels crazy.
Yeah, it was really good.
We will come back to that. I want to start at the beginning of your career.
Okay.
So your first comp, it was figure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I've seen pictures of that, and you have a hell of a lot of muscle considering you'd only been training for a year.
Yeah, I put on muscle pretty, when the eating's there and the diet's on point. Yeah, I can pretty much put on size. So yeah, figure to physique to bodybuilder. So just kind of a natural progression. As the years go on, as you continue to eat and grow, and if you're continuing to lift, for me, it's kind of just a natural progression.
Yeah. Was you quite athletic in school? Is that why you always had athletic build?
I played softball and basketball, in high school and somewhat in college, some, summer leagues and stuff like that. But it's kind of always doing something. So yeah.
What's the major differences between your first show and the shows you're doing now?
I learned a lot more. I know a lot more about my body and kind of how it responds to food. I'm a lot more disciplined now than when I first started. It was just kind of let's do our first show, and it was kind of more of a bucket list kind of thing. Let's just see. And now, I did the first couple shows, and I'm actually pretty good. I found out. So, it's more than just a hobby for me. It's my chosen sport, and it's what I do. So.
How long does it take you to become pro?
I turned pro 5 years ago, so it took me about 3 years before I turned pro.
Yeah. That's not really that long.
No, I was lucky enough. We did several shows. I think I did my first national show. I did 3 national shows before I finally turned pro. So, but yeah, it was my figure, physique. Yeah, but it was about 3 years, 3.5 years or so. In the NPC Junior Nationals when I turned pro at. So yeah.
You seem to do a lot of shows back to back. Like you do like 4 or 5 shows a year, and how you still grow so much by doing them shows is just crazy. Is that just because you're so strict, or do you think your body is just amazing at reacting?
It's funny though, because especially like from my first, switching over to bodybuilding this year and doing the Omaha to the Olympia, I literally grew into the Olympia. And you can see it in the density in my back. It's from first show to the Olympia. And I was doing quite a bit of cardio during that whole time too. I would say the diet was pretty on point, keeping the protein pretty high. But a lot of it was my off-season prep. I had, put on a lot of solid muscle in the off-season. And for me, off-season, it's just food. It's, there are really no drugs at all involved in my off-season. I don't take anything to help put on mass. And I think that's kind of the difference. If you put on that kind of weight in off-season with food and solid food and lifting, it just kind of withstands over the course of the year in dieting. So I had a really solid off-season, and then just kind of continued on in prep with just keeping the diet on point as we continue with the cardio and stuff. So yeah, I was really, really happy with this year's progress for sure.
Yeah, but your off seasons they must be so short.
They're pretty short. Once I get ready for a show, I kind of like to, I'd say knock them out. But once I'm ready, I'm ready. And I tend to, if I do one show, then we might do one, wait 2 weeks to hit another show. But yeah, once I'm ready, I kind of am just ready and go ahead and knock a few shows out. So year before last, we did 5 shows, including the Olympia. Last year for 2020, it was 4 shows, including the Olympia. So hopefully we get a one and done this year, or at least 3 shows. And by the end, it's pretty taxing on the body. I'm pretty fatigued. I'm pretty tired by the time the Olympia rolls around. But there's no letting up because it's the Olympia. But after having when you get there on points, you're pretty spent. Because you had to do so many shows.
Yeah.
And that's not what I want to do. It's what I have to do. So.
Yeah, but at least you can do it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Was your first show with IFBB, or was it a different federation?
I was always NPC. I've always been. Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
they were my first show figure. Yeah, and I think I made the switch over after we did 2 years in figure, and then we finally switched over to women's physique. But yeah,
Yeah.
always.
I remember seeing an interview with you, and it was in 2019, and you had just done a few physique shows, and you said, I don't know if I can build enough mass to become bodybuilding. And it was actually quite quick after that you moved up. Do you think that was always suited to your body type? Because even back then you were quite big.
Well, see, and that was one of the things too. I was on the bigger side of physique. And so then I actually talked to, because I did Tampa in physique, and that was my first show. After Tampa, I remember sitting and I talked to Linda Murray, and she really was telling me, she's like, women's bodybuilding is going to make a comeback. She's like, and you're on the bigger side, you really would do well, switching over to, women's bodybuilding. So I was like, well, and for me, I always thought I had a small frame. And I'm like, how much muscle can I really put on? And can I be competitive with these bigger girls? So I guess I was kind of on the fence about that. And then how much more food could I really eat? So yeah, but I am happy I made the switch. It definitely suits me better. I'm not sure how much more muscle I can get. I'm sitting at about 175 right now. But we'll see. We'll see how much muscle I can add on.
Well, you said you couldn't do it a couple of years ago, so
Yeah, exactly. Here we are.
yeah. Do you have any shows that you weren't happy with the placing? or oh. Or have you have you always agreed with, okay, yeah, maybe I deserve that placing?
For the most part, I'll always side with the judges, whatever they see fit. I think the closest call was Chicago. That was a pretty close call for me. I lost Chicago by 1 point. So that was kind of one of those where I'm like, I thought we gave an amazing look and kind of thought we had it. Came down to, I think, one pose that I lost, and it is what it is. For me to win a show, which is what my coach told me, like, you have to win every single pose without question. So outside of that, I mean, I'm usually pretty okay with what the judge's decision is. My goal is to come back even better the next time. So, it's not a question. So, yeah.
Do you think that's more frustrating that you lost by 1 point rather than 20 points?
Well, yeah, because it's kind of like, seriously, like, what did I not do? And I gave everything I had for that show.
Yeah.
So it gets to be like, all right, well, what exactly happened? And but I'm always like, hey, whatever. It is what it is. There's not much you can do about it. You can be upset about it for the moment, which I was, and then we started prep, for the Olympia too. So it was like, you can't really dwell on it too much, because the decision stands. There's not much you can do about it, but just to be, better the next time you hit stage. So that's always my plan. It comes down to it.
You mentioned your coach. You're with Shelby, aren't you?
Yes.
How long have you been with him for?
I started with him in 2019, 3 weeks out from the Chicago Pro, as an emergency prep. This was, the coach that I had before that, me and him had kind of parted ways. And so I was like, I just wasn't sure I was going to be ready. So I just reached out to him. I'm like, Shelby, hey. And we were ready, and he took a second place at Chicago.
In 3 weeks, he got you ready.
It was it was very much a 3 week, and I had left the previous coach because I didn't feel like there was enough communication, enough check-ins, enough this and that. So I got with Shelby, and it was literally the complete opposite of that. He's like, so I need emails, I need daily check-ins, I need you to fill out this template and send this template back to me. But it was literally daily check-ins every single day, every morning. If you didn't get them by a certain time, and it was like, whoa. So the expectation was definitely different with him, for sure. Yeah.
But I think at the level you're at, though, you need that.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. For me to get better, absolutely. Absolutely.
You're a coach yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Do you coach other competitors?
Not a lot of other competitors, just more so everyday people for the most part, yeah.
So you and Shelby have got completely different methods.
Yeah, I mean, but it's one of those. So even with my everyday clients, I treat them like athletes as well. Everyone's goal is different, and whether it's not everyone wants to be a bodybuilder. Some people need to lose weight. Some people just work out to be healthy and not have to be on medication all their life. So I check in with all my clients and make sure that everyone, my expectation is just as high. So,
Yeah.
You know,
Have you ever had a bad coaching experience? Like a coach has told you what to do and you think, definitely no.
Previously, yes. It was just, I require a certain amount of attention, I guess. So it just seemed like he was just kind of giving me some random stuff. And I was like, the show's kind of like 3 weeks out, so we just kind of were butting heads, just not on the same page with the diet, kind of opposing, couldn't figure out a steady schedule for, communication. If I reach out to you and you're not responding within 24 to 48 hours, it's, I have a problem with it, because I respond within 24 to 48 hours. So
Yeah.
I expect the same. So
yeah.
you can't do that. And there's too much right on the line right now to be playing games. So we're all at the pro level. This is, so.
Yeah.
But that was probably not a real negative experience, I'd say.
Have you always had a coach in every comp that you've done?
Yeah.
So even your first comp, you had a coach?
Yeah. I had been with Reshanna Bonneville. She's a women's physique Olympian as well. I met her. She was my coach up until maybe 2019 is when I switched over to Shelby and the other coach that I worked with briefly, Brandon. But I had been with her up until then, all through figure. I turned pro, working with her with physique. So yeah, it had been me and her. I met her working at a vitamin shop. She came in one day and I was just like, wow, I want to look like you. And that's really what I told her. And that kind of started that relationship, and we've been together ever since. And she's still a mentor for me now. Like I still reach out to her for, different things. If I'm making a decision, before I even switched over to bodybuilding, she was the first person I called. When I got my first Olympia invite, she was the second person I called, but she was who I called, immediately. So yeah, she's always who I go to for advice. And yeah.
Yeah, it's important to have people that you can always turn to, right?
Especially from the very beginning, like literally this was she got me through my first show, prepared me for my first show. It was one of those that did everything, my hair, my makeup, the whole bit. So traveled with me every show, literally up until this 2019 when I got introduced to Brandon and then Shelby, and that's kind of where I made that kind of switch over to that coaching.
Do you think in order for an athlete to be successful, they should have a coach?
I think you always need someone to a certain extent. I mean, I think there are plenty of people that have coached themselves, to the pro level, have coached themselves to a pro win, whatever. But I think it's important to have someone in your background. You have someone with you that either takes a look at you as far as your diet, or posing, or can just check in with you mentally. Everyone needs someone here at this level. You just kind of need to do.
Yeah. When it gets to like the last week of prep, everyone has like different tricks. I think my first prep, I drank red wine. My second one, it was 3 bottles, maybe too much. My second prep was really salty steak and chips the day before, and water loading and stuff like that. Is there any crazy stuff like that you've ever had to do?
No, usually not too much. I've heard the wine thing. And actually, Shelby did. He's like, "You want to do the wine?" And I was like, Chef, I'm not sure I trust myself with wine. This dehydrated. This could go bad. Go sideways really quickly. But I've heard those stories a lot. I personally have not. I keep it pretty simple the night before prep. I just want a good meal usually, and it's usually pretty basic. We do like burger and fries and usually something like that the night before the show for the most part. Most times I get food. But yeah, other than that, I try to keep it pretty simple.
Do you like water load and stuff like that?
We water load. I think we figured it out. We start about 10 days out with a water load, typically 8 to 10 days out, depending on how I'm looking. And I'll get up to, Shelby goes about 3 gallons. He can go up to 3 gallons of water, that far, about 10 days out, which is, yeah, drink more water. That's just, yeah. So I remember when we first started, I was just like, drink how much? Like humanly impossible initially. Now, yeah, I can pretty much get it down if I have to, but it was 2.5, almost 3 gallons of water for the first couple of days and then kind of taper off. And it varied show to show. I mean, I kept my water pretty high for Omaha, just because we didn't necessarily know. We were still kind of trying to figure out my look. So to keep me as full as possible, we actually kept the water pretty high. I was still getting water on show day versus in Chicago. I think we cut it completely about 12 hours before the show. But I usually start really, really high water about 15 days out typically.
What's your usual like prep time? What's your like ultimate 12 weeks, 8 weeks, even longer, 16 weeks? When do you start being strict cutting?
I do a really slow start. So like probably about 12 to 16. I can go up to four months out sometimes, just kind of depending on how the off season starts. I'm probably not going to hit stage this year until July, August. So right now I'm still just trying to keeping the weight that I have on now and keeping my diet just really clean and kind of converting some of this fat over to more muscle. But usually I can go as low as about an 8-week prep time as far as having to cut. I can cut down to about 8 weeks and be show ready. But yeah.
Are you growing in your off season now, or are you do you want to be the same size, or do you want to gain?
I probably want to be around this 175 now. I think I'm going to stick right around here and then just kind of develop this into muscle. I got up to about 180, 182. And then because it was just more cheat meals, more, high carb stuff. So now I'm just kind of tapering the diet, keep everything a little bit cleaner. I'm getting like 2 cheat meals a week, and they're basically the same. It doesn't change much. I do a brunch meal, I do a sushi meal, and just keeping my calories and keeping the food pretty high right now. So, but yeah,
that does seem to be a preferred cheat meal for bodybuilders is sushi.
Yeah.
Is that because it's like the cleanest cheat meal?
And that's kind of, yeah. And then I do and then on brunch, it never changes. I love French toast, so I have French toast every Sunday. So that's kind of my thing. And then other than that, I mean, keep it. And for me, even the carbs and stuff, I didn't competing in physique. I always use rice as a carb. So like now we're introducing oatmeal and sweet potatoes, which is funny. Like I haven't had sweet potatoes in a couple of years. So having that in my diet now, I think it's going to change my look too and kind of help add that extra muscle and that thicker look that I need while still keeping my waist small as possible. So 175-ish. We'll see what we can do once we actually start cutting this down a little bit.
Because I know you prefer a high fat, low carb diet. Is that usually during prep or off season as well?
That's doing prep. Off season now we're keeping the calories, the carbs pretty high. And we add a cup of rice or some type of carb into every single meal. So 3 of my meals, I'm doing a cup of rice at each. I'm doing a sweet potato every day. I do oatmeal every day, a cup of oatmeal every day. So yeah, I'm getting quite a few carbs.
So what does your typical diet like for today, say, what would that look like? Like what would you be eating for each meal? Because obviously you'd be eating a lot more than me. Like portion sizes.
Yeah, it varies. So like breakfast, typically I do 5 egg whites, 2 whole eggs. I do 2 turkey sausage links, and then I'll do 1 or 2 Kodak waffles. That's pretty much my standard breakfast. I always do some ground beef, or I always do ground chicken, 1 of each usually. So I do about 6 ounces there, cup of rice. So 5 or 6 meals. I do just kind of in between, just kind of a snack. I do 1 cup of oatmeal and then a protein shake with that. And that's just kind of like in between my main meals, so right after a workout or something. But yeah, I'm still getting about 6 solid meals plus a shake.
Yeah. What's that in calories? How much calories?
Oh, 3,500 or so.
Okay. Yeah. So that's not too bad. I would like, obviously you read some people are on like 6,000 calories, like a figure compare and stuff like that. And
3,500.
The amount
I'm not doing any cardio or anything now. And that's the thing too. In season, I'm doing an hour and a half cardio. I'm not doing any cardio now. So, and for me, those extra carbs is just, like I said, the sweet potato and oatmeal. That's brand new for me. That's something, like I said, sweet potato I haven't had in over 2 years in my diet. So I feel like those kind of things are going to make, a kind of change in my physique too. So, yeah.
Is yours the same thing every day, or do you kind of switch it around a little bit just to keep the flavor exciting?
It's pretty much the same. Like breakfast doesn't change too much if it's 6 egg whites versus maybe 2 whole eggs one day. It doesn't necessarily change much. I always have the waffles. I'm always doing the turkey sausage. I'm always going to do salmon and beef. Pretty much stays in there. Shrimp might come in and out, that kind of stuff, but For the most part, it's pretty standard. Yeah.
What about fast food? You ever eat any fast food?
Where do I go? I mean, I like tacos. If I'm gonna do anything, I do like Culver's. That's kind of my like, and I get like a couple burgers and fries from Culver's. That's usually like if I have another cheat meal, that'd be something like that. Or when we're in prep, that's kind of Shelby does these check-ins. He's like, depending on how you look, he's like, hey, go have a cheat meal. And I remember him telling me like 10 days out from a show, and it might have been Chicago. He's like, okay, go eat. And I'm like, well, what? He's like, burger, fries, how about that? Okay. So it was, I don't know, 10 in the morning, and I'm like waiting for Culver's to open. And then I had texted with my friends. I'm like, I don't know how your prep is going, but I sent the picture. I'm like, I'm waiting for Culver's to open. So clearly I'm winning. I don't know. This is and I was like, seriously? He's like, yeah, get a couple burgers. Okay, yeah, let's do that. So yeah.
Are your preps very different from physique to bodybuilding? Did you have to get leaner for bodybuilding, or do you think it was about the same? It's just obviously less muscle in physique. Or would you say your prep is harder in bodybuilding?
I think it's harder now. Well, I think bodybuilding is a little bit harder. I mean, the biggest thing, initial difference was just the food first off, and getting used to eating more, and then just changing how I lift. You have to lift heavier. You need thicker muscle. You need denser muscle. So yeah, and just not doing. I did a ton of cardio in physique. 2 and 3 hours of cardio at times, depending on, so
A day?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
I suppose if you're going on the Olympia stage, that's what you got to do.
Yeah, but just lifting a little bit heavier and getting used to being under, heavier weight, and getting kind of used to that whole thing, just the eating. But the posing's different. I think the expectation for me is different. I think bodybuilding is where I need to be. I've had a really solid year, and I'm looking to build on that. So I feel like I have the potential to do some pretty good work here. So we shall see.
Do you think you would have gone into bodybuilding sooner had it been at the O?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think you can see it now. There were so many people switching over because now that it's made its return to the Olympia, it's like, oh, okay. And the response it's gotten, it's like, wow, so, but it's so funny to see that now versus a couple of years back, people were just so turned off by it and no one wants to even think about going to bodybuilding. And it's so funny how just a couple of years later now everyone wants to be a bodybuilder. So
yeah. Do you think more people will switch over? Because obviously there's still some girls in physique that are big.
Yeah. They'll start to switch over for sure. Yeah.
Is there a weight limit between physique and bodybuilding? Like how do you know when you need to cross over? Like it.
That's stuff. I mean, I'm definitely bigger now than I was even then, and I still at this point now I'm considered small in bodybuilding, which is kind of funny. So now it's like you have to still get even bigger. It gets tough though, because I mean, there's plenty of times when you see some top physique competitors that they don't place, immediately all the comments are, oh my God, you need to switch over. And it's like, not necessarily. Like Valentina had that all the time. She had placed low in one show and they're like, oh my God, you need to switch over. And it was just that particular show. I think you have to kind of go with how your body feels too, and if you get some of the feedback from the judges, and see what they say, but then see how you feel. I mean, I feel like my weight difference now, I probably have about a 15 or 20 pound difference from stage weight. So, I mean, I was probably hitting stage in physique 150, 155. I'll be hitting stage now about 165 or so, lean. So, yeah. For me, that's about a 15 pound difference.
Yeah. I remember reading the article was about why they took me so out. And honestly, it just winds me up. It just makes me so mad. Number one, why they took it away, and number two, what they were saying about it in the first place. Because there's no difference between the women's bodybuilding and the men's bodybuilding. Both of them are really hard to get to, and both of them you probably do need drug assistance. There's no one on the men's stage that's natural in bodybuilding. So to me, it didn't make sense why they took out the women's. I prefer watching the women's personally.
Definitely.
You mentioned when you're off season, you head free, nothing. When you go into your prep, what thing gets introduced?
It varies. It depends on what we're doing. Typically, I mean, everything is just a typical test. I don't do too much test, primo, basics, VAR. I try to keep them still at a minimal. But the test is always that's your base. I mean, that's always going to be your base. And I think we did semester on, and we kind of run those a little bit of primo. We kind of run for the most part too, most of the season. And those kind of become my base, I think, and then bars kind of run throughout the season.
Yeah,
I think pretty much my base for the most part until we really start cutting. Then we start with like the clean and the T3. Clean and T3 are the basic cutters, and that's what we use. And it's just the dosage just varies depending on where we're at. But those are my.
Do you run test, primo, VAR all at the same time?
No. Test is always the base. Test and primo we kind of run together. Those are usually run together. I usually don't start anything until about 8 weeks out from whatever that first show is. So it's usually about an 8-week cycle or so roughly. And then it just kind of comes in phases. We'll add in the VAR. We might add in, an anti-estrogen at some point, of course, down the line. But kind of in stages. And then after the show, we kind of taper back down until, we have to build back up again too. So, I do a low dose clean until we slowly bump it up. But again, I check in so much with Shelby too. It's like, okay, we'll stay here for another couple of days, and then we kind of slowly bump it up. And so at least he's very, very thorough with that kind of stuff. So
yeah, I'm on Anavar at the moment. I'm on a cycle now, just 10 milligrams that's every day.
Okay, yeah.
So I mentioned this on a previous podcast. I feel the pump a lot quicker,
and
it makes it even harder to push through. Which is but I'm not, because at the moment I'm training at home. We're still in lockdown, so our gyms are still shut. So at the moment I'm just stuck with 12.5 kilo dumbbells. No matter what I'm doing, I have to use them. But yeah, that's the only side effect I've had so far. I've only been on it for like 3 weeks, so I haven't noticed any growth yet. I suppose my coach will just monitor that if I need to, because I want to go.
Subtle though, like a bar is one of those. There's the side effects are really low. You don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. It's one that I've used over the years and I like a lot. And then you can kind of tell with your body and what your body likes and responds to. I know for me, I'm not a huge fan of when it really dries out my joints. So it's kind of one of those. It's a great for a hardening effect, but it's one of those that when we do toss it in, it's only probably tossed in for a couple weeks at a time, at the very end of a prep, right before the couple weeks out from showtime. Just because I don't necessarily like being on it for a long period of time. If I'm still trying to squat heavy, I don't need anything drying out my joints. It's, and I've learned that just certain side effects, I'm like, I don't really like this one as much. So it's short bursts of certain things.
I've heard great things about primo. Everyone says if you can get real primo, it's incredible. What's the difference? Because obviously primo is like low side effects as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what?
Yeah, I try to. That's what I like. Like I said, I keep a basic test. The test and primo seem to work pretty well for me. And I think too, keeping it in for most of the season, it was good to help as I'm dieting down, just to kind of help maintain my size and muscle just over the course of the season. It was one that I was able to kind of keep in for a long duration without having huge side effects, especially the longer you stay on it, you're more susceptible to side effects. So it's just pretty.
Yeah, I think people need to realize that at your level and the size you are, you can't afford to lose size. So you need it. If you want to be competitive, that's what you got to do.
You right, exactly. At this point, that's just it. If you want to be competitive, this is where we're at. So all you can do for me, I'm just be healthy about it. And it's the same thing as soon as I hit off season, I go and get blood work done. I make sure, hey, I see my doctor. My doctor knows that I compete. She knows what I take, so hey, my cholesterol is a little high. She gives me a prescription for that to help get me back in line before we start prep all over again. But you have to be honest about it. I mean, I'm honest with my doctor so that I can address whatever issue, before we start up again. You don't just run season after season, cycle after cycle, and not know. Now, I mean, in some of these these are real drugs. Like, there are real side effects going on. So it's like, you're super healthy, but your cholesterol's through the roof. Like, come on now. You're eating chicken and vegetables all day, every day, but your cholesterol is shit. Like, you should probably address that before you die. Like it's a real thing. So I mean, so I'm like, I try and address those kinds of things too. It's important, you know. So
yeah. How do you find Clen? Because I struggled. I remember I was at work and I was showing someone my phone and literally my hand was like this, but I didn't know. It was only until they were like, "Are you all right?" And I was like, "I don't know."
yeah.
It was like, did you go out last night? And I was like, yeah, that's what it is.
Well, for me, it's right. It's the shakes from the Clan, or it's the absolute sweating from T3, which I take. It's like the night sweats from T3 or horrific. So I've had those things too. But I have a very good supplier, so luckily I'm.
maybe mine was dodgy. We're cracking. So what's I've heard of T3, but I'm not 100% sure what it is. Is it like similar to Clen, like same effects?
Yeah, it's kind of a synergist. Like they work really well together. I take them both for just basically it's strictly for the fat loss. T3 can put a little bit at the muscle too. So again, that's why I kind of like to test Primo throughout the season to kind of help combat some of that too. So T3 can put a little bit at some of the muscle. So, but it's a good one for fat loss. That I take it with the Clen, yeah.
What's your favorite show look?
My favorite
like
show look?
Yeah, like when you're on stage, like what's your favorite look?
Show wise, I mean, my best look I think was Chicago. I think my best look was at Chicago. Which is funny. Like I feel like I was actually bigger and fuller at the Olympia, but I think I was also a little bit tired. I think my overall presentation, overall look was just a little bit better for Chicago. I think that was my best look there. Yeah.
How do you find the pose down on the Olympia stage? Because it looks, everyone made it look like really fun. But have they already decided your placing before that? Because everyone's kind of like in front of each other and stuff like that. So have they already decided, and then you're just going out there and having fun just to get more stage time?
That's just having your fun. Like it's already been decided, and everyone knows the pose. Like we all know the pose down's coming. So we're like getting in the music's getting ready to change. Like, okay, here we go. You guys ready? All right, let's go. So we're talking amongst ourselves already. Like, all right, let's hit this front. Let's hit this pose. Or so yeah, but the show's already been decided. That's just more of the fun aspect, and just kind of getting out there and just more for a crowd pleaser kind of thing.
Yeah, at least then you get more stage time. Because I've been at a show where people have been rushed, and they've said like, okay, you've only got a minute instead of a minute and a half or whatever, or you can only do 2 poses instead of your usual 6, just to kind of rush it. And you're like, I've just prepped for 12 weeks. No way, no, you can wait for me.
And they tell you like right before you go on, and I'm like, for me, I'm like, wait, the routine that I've practiced is 90 seconds, so I don't really know what to cut out to fit into your 45 seconds. Now, you know, seriously. Oh, like I've had a couple of times where they like, and they're like calling the next person. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I'm done.
But I suppose if everyone just refuses to move, like, no, I'm gonna have my time, thank you. Is there anyone up to that was on the Olympia stage, you like athletes that you look up to and think they're like top tier? Obviously you're top tier, but it's, you know, everyone's got their one person they look at and think, oh my god.
I don't know, everyone at that point I feel like have all been like idols of mine before I turned pro, or people I looked up to. I remember it was funny, we were at check-ins and I literally was standing right next to Iris, and so she had her arm around me, and in my mind I'm like, oh my god, I'm standing next to Iris. Like, so it's still one of those things for me. I'm like, she's just kind of, you know, she's Irish, she's kind of hanging out, and she's like, hey, and she's like totally just regular, and I still look at her and I'm like,
oh my god.
yeah, that's exactly what it was. It's like I had to turn it off, and I had my phone. I'm like, I really want to take another picture, but I'm just trying not to be
not too obvious. Do you think it would have been different if she was there? Because she was supposed to be there, wasn't she?
I think Andrea brought a really good look. I think Andrea brought a really good look to the show. I don't think it would have been any different. I mean, possibly. I mean, she probably would have been in the top 5, I'm sure. And she's always going to be lean. She's always going to be conditioned. I don't think that's ever going to not be the case. But I think the winner would have been the winner still. So
yeah.
It's yeah.
Did you agree with the top 10?
For the most part, I mean, I could have been moved up a couple spots, but I think for the most part, but yeah, I think the top 10 was pretty spot on, actually. Yeah.
I think the posing does make a big difference, because when people were just, when they're just like front relaxed,
Mm-hmm.
the top 10 probably wouldn't have been who I would, obviously I'm not a judge, but it wouldn't have been who I thought. But the posing makes such a big difference in the routine, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And it's kind of one of those things, it's not necessarily counted per se, but the posing, if it's close, then yeah, the posing makes a huge difference. I think the posing makes a huge difference.
Yeah. The reason I like bodybuilding as well is that everyone on that stage looks completely different. You've all got mass, but everyone's shape and everything's completely different. Whereas like bikini girls, they do look quite similar. I don't know how they choose the top 10 bikinis, because they
so
all
many, yeah, it's so many.
yeah. But no, like with the women's bodybuilding and even physique, everyone looks so different.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you have certain things you have to work on, like from your feedback from the Olympia?
Overall size, I think, just to get a little bit bigger, fill out a little bit more. That's kind of the only real feedback at this point.
Yeah.
And it's fun, just to overall size, a little bit thickness in my back, keep the waist the same, and just, overall size. I think it's more thickness in the back and the quads.
Yeah. They always say legs and back. Legs and back win shows, I guess, though, when it's to do with size.
Yeah. So definitely some more thickness in the back, and it's kind of gonna be one of my focuses. Just really the back and upper body in general, arms overall, and some more size.
Yeah.
So
your legs are pretty big already.
I think the legs, and I'm like, just more lines in the legs. Okay, more lines in the legs. Okay, fine. And more upper body.
That's more down to diet, though, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, like I said, some of the lifts too. I mean, I used to lift lighter in physique and maybe do higher reps. So now it's just, adding in heavier squats and heavier presses, just heavier compound loads in my deadlifts. I hadn't deadlifted in a long time, so putting that back into the routine as well. So yeah, just kind of training up how I lift a little bit, and keeping the food clean and keeping the calories high. I think that would be.
What does your training split look like now?
We're doing typically now. I do a chest shoulder day. So I'm hitting chest and shoulders twice a week. It varies every couple weeks. I switch it up. 2 leg days right now. One kind of heavy day, but it's more just, it's pretty basic. It's squat and leg press and lunges. And that's 1 leg day. Then I'll have a higher day where I do more some and stuff. But 2 leg days, 2 upper body shoulder chest days, and then a dedicated back day. And I'm getting a couple rest days in too. Right now, just kind of recovering from some past injuries and still doing some rehab work and recovery work now too. So, yeah.
That must be hard when you're still trying to get on that Olympia stage going through injuries.
It's it's rough. I mean, I had a really significant injury last year actually that I competed with. So I actually tore my rotator cuff. So I had a torn rotator cuff. And it happened right around March or so. So we competed with that throughout the year. So immediately following the Olympia, I had surgery on that done. So we've been recovering from that and kind of getting things back going now. So it's been a process, but I'm confident in the doctors and have an amazing physical therapy staff, and we're kind of back just now getting cleared to really start lifting again. So everyone knows I'm like, hey, July, August, we're hitting stage. But yeah, it's
So you haven't really been be able to train properly since your surgery?
It was, I've been able to train. It was lower body I was cleared to do like since day one. We started PT 1 week after the surgery. So I'm about 10, 11 weeks post-surgery. I have about 2 more weeks before I'm officially cleared to start training the shoulder again that I had the surgery on. So a pretty amazing recovery so far. I feel pretty good about it.
I suppose food plays a massive role.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I had right before the surgery, I'd actually got up to about 185. So of course with the surgery and all that, I dropped down to my lowest was 170. So I lost about 15 pounds. So now getting back up now, sitting at about this 175, 176. And that's solely just the diet and getting the food back in and getting getting the calories back in despite not necessarily being as active because wasn't training as hard. But that's when food became so much more important. Like I have to get these calories in, like I have to get the food in. But I feel pretty good. I don't necessarily think I gained. I lost some muscle for sure, but I didn't gain fat. That is kind of I think was a big deal too. So I definitely lost some muscle. But on the flip side, we didn't gain much of fat in the process either. So now for like this 175 that I'm sitting at now, if we can make that more muscle, then I think we'll be in a good spot. So I mean, I feel pretty confident about my rehab. The doctor was amazing and very supportive, very attentive about the injury and knowing, hey, let's get this fixed. And I told him, I'm like, these are my shows that are coming up. So can you do this or not? So the doctor is pretty awesome. I'm in physical therapy. I mean, I'm going 90 minutes, 3 times a week. So it's been pretty intense. But before the surgery, I mean, I was in rehab. I was going to physical therapy up until about 2 weeks out from the Olympia. I was going 3 times a week just to maintain range of motion in this shoulder. Because this injury happened back in March, and I knew that I was losing some range of motion. So I went and got an MRI done. And they're like, you need surgery. And I was like, well, I can't do that right now. I got a couple shows coming up. What can we do in the meantime? So yeah, the physical therapist, along with my posing coach, Kenny. And I know a lot of people use Kenny as for her posing, but he got me to pose around this injury so that it didn't look horrible on stage. So between Kenny and the therapist, we did pretty good pushing through, for last year for sure. So
we still came top 10. So
I'm like, I did 3 shows, top 3, finished 9th in the world with the torn rotator cuff. So it was so funny. As soon as we got back home, I was like, surgery was already scheduled. Yeah. And it's like, let's get it done now. And let's count out the time that we have. And, no one, my spouse and my wife knew, and Shelby knew, and my coaches, other than that, but yeah.
Has it lifted any weight yet? How is it? When do you think it'll be ready to go all in?
I see the doctor in 2 weeks, and I'll be cleared. It feels pretty good. The doctor's like, no, don't rush it, but me, I'm just like, we're a little bit ahead of schedule, which is nice. So once I see the doctor for the next 2 weeks, we should be cleared to go, and then it'll be just a matter of what I can lift as I go on. But I feel pretty good about it. I'm just taking my time with it, I'm not rushing anything. I'm not stressed about it. I'm controlling at this point what I can control. I can literally train everything else. So that's kind of what I'm doing now, and keeping the muscle memory and just kind of working through that. But feel pretty good about it. I think I'll be just fine. I think I have enough time.
Can you still train back with your shoulder like that?
I do train back. I'm just conscious of how the lifting and not doing too many. It's some of the heavier rows. I'm just not doing that kind of stuff right now. But I'm working around it as best we can until we get the official clearance, not to do anything too much to set back the recovery. But based on the timeline that we have, if I go ahead and get this last clearance, we should be good to go. And this will be an interesting prep because I'm not doing any cardio right now. I'm just keeping the diet clean, keeping the food clean, and it seems to be working. The weight's going up now naturally, So yeah, I feel pretty good about it. I think it'll be an interesting prep once we really get down into it. But we've set some dates, and I've kind of counted out the weeks, and yeah.
So you're going to leave the doctor's office getting cleared, straight to the gym.
Well, and the doctor's actually so funny. He's like, just give me a little bit more time. He's like, I know. Once I let you loose, that's it. I'm like, you're absolutely right. Once you let me loose, that's it. But yeah, so it's like I said, it's having a good team in place, and Shelby knew I was having the surgery, so it was a matter of putting the diet in place, knowing to have a diet so I wouldn't lose so much mass, and that's when the diet became so important, as with the surgery and stuff. So, and same thing with rehab. My rehab started 1 week after the surgery, and it's been pretty intense since then. So just doing every single thing that I need to rehab properly, and I think I'll be in a better place. I'm glad I did it. It needed to be done. I couldn't grow I wasn't going to grow. I hadn't been able to train back or shoulders, properly in almost a year. And for me, that's what caused that's what I believe caused my loss in Chicago. I lost the rear double bicep. That's the pose I lost. So,
well, you couldn't lift your arm up.
You're right. I was like, it's one of those I couldn't train. Like, and it was that's what I said too. Was so important having a good off season. It was that off season that I had the year previous that kind of carried me through. Because I hadn't been able to train shoulder or back with the intensity that I wanted to. Because you don't want to make the injury worse. You want to be able to, not so much that you can't train, compete at all. So it was always, and who wants to work out scared? In the sense I was working out scared, and in the back of my mind, okay, do this, but be very, very conscious of this. So it's hard training like that. It's hard, training with, that kind of thought in your back of your mind too. So
yeah,
now that I have that, I can definitely go all in, and that's what I feel good about. That's what's going to be the key. So,
Are your gyms open at the moment?
Yeah.
Oh, so lucky.
It was, I mean, when they first closed, and then I'm a personal trainer too, so it's just kind of like we're like closed. I remember like going up to the gym, and I was like, I knew that the order was out, and like it's closed. And I'm like, okay, but is it closed? So, but I still drove up there, and I'm like, no, nothing's working. It's dark. Okay. So then you just start trying to buy all kinds of stuff, and the pricing for just buying equipment, if you can find it, was ridiculous. It was so just ridiculous.
Yeah. We've had we're on the third lockdown. We've been in lockdown since before Christmas. So no gyms for like a year. That we've had, I think, 3 months worth of open gyms. So it's hard for people over here. But like you said, buying stuff. My living room is a gym at the moment. I've got a squat rack and smack bang in my living room. Have you got equipment?
Yeah, and that was the thing. Like I bought so much stuff. All my cardio. Like I have a stair stepper, I have my treadmill, I have a spin bike, and I have bench, bunch of T-bar row machine. I have a bunch of stuff. Yeah.
But at least you're back open now, because there is a big difference with training at home and training at the gym.
And even like I had bought all these commercial pieces. I paid a bit of money for stuff, so it was like, because of course you overpaid, because it was just you're just getting what you get, but it's just different. It's just a different vibe, and you kind of need that, especially when you're in prep. It's just like it's someone that kind of thinks like just having that kind of just the vibes from the gym. I just I just miss it. So just different. Yeah. So
just to let everyone know that even Olympians struggles during lockdown training.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Is Chicago like a popular bodybuilding city?
Yeah,
it's quite rich in bodybuilding culture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have quite a few Olympians actually.
Yeah. Do you have any that train at your gym?
We have a few that have come in through there. I know. Is it Brandon Hendrickson? He's men's Mr. Olympia. He's from Illinois too. So, yeah, and he won this past Olympia. So yeah, we have a few of them.
Oh, okay, that's all right. I think it's nice when you've got gyms like that as well. Where I live, we don't have anything. But then I'm not in a big city like Chicago.
there's quite a few of us actually. Yeah.
Yeah. You're competing in July, you said. What show's that? Where's that?
Chicago. That'll be end of July in Chicago, which will be back in Atlanta. I think they're going to keep it in Atlanta this year.
And obviously the plan is to win that. If it so happens you had to do another show, where would it be?
So we're going to July, August as far as that. So for Chicago, Tampa, I have to double check on the dates for Savannah. I know Savannah's in July as well, so it may be just before Chicago. So depending on how we're looking, what coach thinks. The plan is July, whatever we can do, July, August before the Olympia. So ideally, 2 shows. I don't want to do more than that. I don't want to do more than Chicago, to be quite honest.
Yeah, like you said.
My plan, this is like 2 seconds in a row. Come on.
Well, they're having only like a couple of weeks difference. Would you say that's easier though than having like it 2 weeks later or 2 months later?
I prefer a back-to-back show. So like we do Chicago and then we roll into Tampa, a couple weeks later. I should be tighter, I should be drier, versus, waiting another 6 or 8 weeks. Yeah, I prefer, kind of getting those couple shows out the way. Once I'm ready, I'm ready. And then mindset's like kind of dialed in. So it's like, yeah.
Do you have to reverse after every show if you're doing back-to-back, or do you just kind of like keep it?
It depends. It depends. If it's really, I've done shows, as close as 10 days apart. So then usually we just kind of roll on. You bring the water right back up, take the water right back down. You don't even necessarily take out the diuretics. There's not usually enough time. And then after that, you do need a little bit of a break. Because I think I did a show maybe a week apart. Yeah, and I think 7 to 10 days apart. I've done that a couple of times. And there's not much to do. Literally, the water comes up, the water goes back down, and that's about it. You just kind of roll right into it. And typically look a little bit better, a little bit fuller, a little bit drier. But yeah, there's really no time to come off of anything or reverse anything. So it's just the water back up and down. And then.
Yeah, I noticed with athletes at your level, you don't really gain. You relatively stay leanish.
Yeah,
like I would say the topper tier, higher tier the athletes are, the less fat they gain.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think a lot of people gain too much to grow, or do you think it's necessary for people to get the fat on them if they wanted to move up a category? So if someone wanted to go from figure to physique, do you think there is a cap on how much fat they should? Do you think the fat lot will hinder the muscle growth or help?
I mean, you're going to get, well, I guess it would depend. If you're going from, figure to physique, I mean, you're going to get some extra body fat. I think that's natural. But again, it depends on how clean you're keeping your diet. You could, of course, eat 2,500 calories or 5,000 calories. I mean, but it depends on what you're eating. I mean, if you're keeping it clean with chicken and fish and doing 5,000 calories a day, I mean, your body fat is going to it's going to go up potentially because you're not doing any cardio, but it doesn't have to go through the roof. I mean, how do you want to gain that size? You want to gain it clean or not? So there's different ways to get that extra weight on you, depending on how clean you want to do that diet too. So
you don't think it's necessary to gain fat, but
you're not necessarily to go overboard with fat. I mean, it's like even now, I have more body fat than I did before, but I'm also not doing any cardio either. So I feel like cardio kind of helps keep things in check. And I'm also doing a lot more calories, and I'm also doing more cheat meals. I mean, I don't necessarily have those cheat meals when I'm in prep. So, but once you cut out the cardio and you add in some extra carbs, some cheat meals, your weight goes up, the body fat goes up. That's kind of how it goes. So,
what advice would you give for beginners, as in like not pros, amateurs? Say if someone like you back in the day where you're in figure, what advice would you give a figure girl if one day they wanted to do bodybuilding?
If you want to eat and lift, enjoy the process for now. Just enjoy it. I mean, I would say enjoy the process for now. I mean, you're an amateur, just enjoy it. Enjoy bodybuilding, enjoy the process as you're meeting other competitors, enjoy the experience of it as you're learning your body, and continue to eat and grow. If your goal is to get into a different category, don't rush it. I mean, like I said, I went from figure to physique to bodybuilding. Each category is different. When I started out, in figure, it's like, okay, I didn't eat nearly as much. But I mean, it was a starting point for me. I met a lot of great people over the years. I mean, I met my coach clearly. So enjoy that whole process of learning your body. I remember my first show, and after my first show, going out and drinking and eating. And I mean, back then I hit stage at like 115, 116 in figure. I remember blowing up after a show and I was like 130 and I was just like swollen and all this water retention. So be careful of that if you're an amateur. Control your rebound. Don't overeat. I was like freaking out. It was like just water. So now it's like I know what I can do post show and I don't go over it. I don't overdo it. But it's a learning experience. And I remember calling my coach and I'm just like, oh my God, like my ankles are swollen. I can't put on my sheet. It was all bad. But it's part of the process too, I guess. It's definitely a learning process, but don't rush any of it. Just enjoy it as you go. Just enjoy the process. I mean, if you really want to compete and you're into bodybuilding, and just enjoy it. I mean, I look back at it now and I'm like, I like my figure days. I remember my figure days. It's important, I look at my physique now, and physique days, and then those are good times too. Being at the physique and the Olympia was great. There's a couple of girls in physique that I still, talk to, and I think they're great. And even now, like I'm glad that I made the switch over to bodybuilding, and this is definitely where I'm at now. I mean, I continue to eat, I continue to grow, I continue to lift, and now this is where we're at, and this is definitely a good fit for me. So,
yeah. Well, I have a few quick fire questions for you. I do this with all my guests. Would you rather date someone with top half human, bottom half fish, or top half fish, bottom half human?
Bottom half human.
The most important bit.
Yes.
Who would play you in a movie?
Is it Viola Davis?
That's a good one. She's good in every film.
Yeah, that's it.
At least it'll be a good film. If you could eat just one food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
French toast. I'm a breakfast fanatic. French toast. French toast and cheesecake probably tie.
Oh yeah, cheesecake. That's a good one, actually. Yeah.
I'm a sweets. Yeah, I love sweets.
I'm a sweet. I had my first chocolate bar yesterday since like Christmas, and it was mad.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How many raccoons would it take to overpower you?
10.
Yeah, they are violent little buggers.
They are. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. That was brilliant.
Awesome.
And
thank you so much.
Good luck with New York Pro. I'm sure you'll smash it.
Absolutely.
And I will speak to you soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. All right. Bye-bye now.
Bye.